Hi again, well, this is the second video with reference to putting away all my Commodore 64 games into that handy storage unit I showed you in the first video. I hope you enjoyed that and it's given you some ideas. We're always trying to find new ways or novel ways of storing all our old games, and the bigger the cases the more difficult space it needs, and the smaller cases the more space you can fill, but from that point of view it's always a bit more difficult to have all that space available. At the moment all my tape games are taking up a lot of space because I'm not collecting those at the moment, and probably, in all honesty, unless I come across anything really special, I'm not going to be picking any more up for the foreseeable future. My focus at the moment is very much on the PlayStation, Xbox, Wii generation A, and or anything else I can get my hands on. So what I'm going to do today is just basically take you through some of the games that I'm going to be putting away. I'm going to try and get all these into sort of handy video, just so you can see what we've got, and if I come across any that I can talk about in any great detail or remember, I'll try and sort of talk as we go along. Now, what I'm starting with is the smaller cassette tapes. If you look at the first video, I sort of showed you the sort of things I was looking at, which are this size here, and putting those away. Now, I've tried to group them into labels because those of you who know these things, and for those of you who don't know these things, when these games came out, a lot of these games are budget titles. When you call them budget titles, back in the day, they would cost $1.99 or $2.99. That's English pounds back in the early, mid to late 80s. And what we've got here is a load of re-releases, which came on the Hit Squad budget label, which is well remembered and renowned amongst retro gamers that era, where a number of games which were released at full price were then re-released on a budget label, and this was a real mixture of absolutely everything. In fact, pretty much all the major big games of that era, the big conversions of the arcade machines, etc., all went onto this label. So they were released initially at full price, and then they were released at a budget label. Nothing too dissimilar to what we see today with what Microsoft and Sony do with the PlayStation and the Xbox. We have Xbox Classics, we have Xbox 360 Classics, we have PlayStation Platinum, which we had through 1, 2, 3. Nintendo even do the Nintendo Selects series for the Wii, possibly the Wii U, I'm not quite sure, but certainly the GameCube as well, and that's where it all started from. So even though we've moved on generations in terms of consoles and computers, we are still sort of having budget re-releases today. So a lot of this stuff is going to be today stuff that's already been pre-released at a higher price and was then re-released at a budget price. And this is a great way of basically sort of squeezing more money out of these games, but also giving it to people who may miss it the first time around. And don't forget, back in the day, we were paying between $7.99 and $9.99 for the cassette version, and in some cases $14.99 for the disc. This is the 8-bits, of course. If you're looking at the 16-bit machines like the ST and the Amiga, then you'd be paying an awful lot more. And don't forget, at the time there was no budget market for the ST and Amiga. That didn't really come until the end of the 80s into the early 90s. In fact, one of the very first budget games I actually bought for the Amiga was Treasure Island Dizzy, which set me back $4.99. That sounds like an awful lot of money, but the budget market simply didn't exist for those machines when this was going on. So let's run through what we got on the Hit Squad label. You'll recognise some of these, I hope. Some of these I've actually got the videos up from 6 or 7 years ago on the channel, so you can always go back and look at those. I think I probably actually went through that pile quite exclusively, so we'll come across some of these. You can always go back and look at those and see how those go. Some of these I like to try and play again before I pack them away properly. We'll see how we get on with those. So try and get the move angles here today. So we've got this is Badlands. Now this was a overhead top-down game in the vein of Super Sprint, which was a car game. You sort of drove around a small track very, very quickly. And this was the same sort of thing, but it had weapons in this one. It's set in the future. It wasn't actually that bad. I played the Amiga version more than I played that one. A friend of mine had it, but we did get some joy out of it. So that's Badlands. Now another driving game. Now this is a Power Drift. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Power Drift, this was a sort of, I suppose you could say, street racing game, in the fact that you would race around different sorts of tracks. There was sort of different characters, which you can see from the guy on the front here, which is got a Mohican haircut. And they all had different sort of identities and different sort of vehicles, and the trucks would be sort of up, down, over and over bridges. Lost a lot in the translation to 8-bit. The 16-bit version I played on the Amiga was very clumsy and not quite as nice looking as the arcade game. Still a fun game to play, but one of those games which is sort of passive. But it did get sort of up when the compilation releases for Sony and PlayStation came out later on. Some of the Sega compilation, I think that game was actually put out. So there is an arcade, practically perfect version somewhere in the world, but not that one. That's not a bad game. It does tend to get quite well good regard on the Commodore 64 anyway. But like I said, I played more the Amiga version. That wasn't so bad. Now, yeah, Altered Beast, which is probably more remembered for being the original packing game for the Sega Mega Drive. This game is horrible on the Commodore 64. Absolutely horrible. It's slow, it's cumbersome, the controls aren't all that responsive. Yeah, I didn't like it at all when I played it, I've got to be honest with you. And I never really liked the Mega Drive version. I know some people do like it, some people have it in high regard. I don't, I'm sorry, I just... yeah, I didn't think I was even blown away with it, but I was more blown away by Castle of Illusion, for example, or Sonic. That game just didn't appeal to me. Yeah, I didn't like the Commodore 64 version either. Now, this was... I'll get this angle right in a minute. Tubing, which as you can see looks like it's a lot of fun. And it's actually not bad. It's not bad. Again, more played the 16-bit version than this version. You have a guy who you can probably maybe not see there. He's actually sat in a giant rubber ring, and the idea is you sort of float top down the screen, and there's various sort of things being thrown at you or popping out the water, like alligators and all sorts of fishermen's hooks and things like that. And you can have do a two-player game. You can throw tins at each other, and it's actually quite not that bad. It's a lot of fun to play. It's one of those games that got converted from the arcade but wasn't a particularly strong arcade machine game. I remember reading at the time that you would find games which would come out on the home systems, which, you know, you got your Outruns, your Space Harriers, your Operation Wolves, the big arcade games you want to see converted to the home system, however good or bad they were. And then you get games like this which no one had really heard of, and weren't actually bad games, but they didn't get the respect they deserve because they weren't great arcade games to start with, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I am babbling, I don't use a script, as you can probably tell, but yeah, but I again played that more on the Amiga, but that's not a bad little game, that not a bad game at all. I love this one. Now this is Cabal, which is a as you can see, very much in the vein of sort of Rambo, Schwarzenegger type things, where you're at the bottom of the screen and you've got enemies and you're running back and forth trying to shoot them and avoid being shot and all that. It's really quite fun, and I played that one quite a bit. I never actually played it on another system. Played that one quite a bit though, and it's you can lose quite a lot of time on it. Again, very well remembered, very well regarded. This is a particularly good version. There are some other ones which aren't so good, but that is a good one, and I can thoroughly recommend that. Cabal, definitely worth picking up. About 30 years old that now. I think it was 88 when it came out. We go from quite good to a game with a real reputation. This is Renegade 3, which I think was called the Final Chapter. That's it, Final Chapter. If you remember, there was a series game that was Renegade, and then there was Target Renegade, and then there's Renegade 3. Now, Renegade was an arcade conversion. Target Renegade was an original game brought out for the home systems, and then Renegade 3 was described as an absolute abomination. At the time, it was given awards left, right, and centre. You can see this one actually came from Toys R Us. You see that there? Toys at bottom label there, Toys R Us. This was actually very well reviewed at the time. However, it did transpire many years later that the reviews, and this was quite commonplace back in the day, were should we say given favourable opinion in exchange for, you know, some sort of gift or backhand, or I don't know. I'm not going to get into that anyway. There's enough about it online, you can read about it, it's quite well documented. And that game is, well, not really very good at all. It's sort of a time travelling game which completely throws the first two instalments of the Renegade games out the window, just goes off on its own. It's borderline unplayable, unresponsive. Graphically it's okay, but it's not what you'd expect. If you play Renegade, you play Target Renegade, and then you play that, and it's a world apart, honestly. Now, come to an all-time classic, which most people will know. This is Bubble Bobble, and as you can see, there's a $3.99 W.H. Smith label on it. That brings back some memories, doesn't it? $3.99 for that. There we go. One of the great games of all time. Fantastic two-player game, and an excellent conversion. No doubt about it. I think there are some cases where it's not quite 100% perfect. The fact that some of the bits and some of the levels are missing. You'd expect that. Don't forget, you're taking a huge arcade cabinet and you're converting it into a game that size on an 8-bit system. But it is brilliant. The music is... I absolutely love the music on this game. It really is fantastic. And when it was converted at the time, I think it was Firebird who did it. And all the big arcade conversions were going to other software houses, not to small. I was my Firebird or Telecom, possibly. British Telecom had their own label at the time, and all the big arcade games would tend to get picked up by Ocean or US Gold or Elite. They would sort of be the big ones, and then the sort of Domark came into it after that. They were very much a small label, and they picked up the rights to that machine. Now it was a Taisho arcade machine, and of course Taisho, Operation Wolf. Number of the games. I've got Taisho Arcade Legends. I'd reel them off. You can think Rainbow Islands and things like that. And it ended up there, but they did a fantastic job on it. They really did. I've played both the 8-bit and 16-bit version, and to be honest with you, that Commodore 64 version is one of the absolute best. Really enjoyed it. Great two-player fun. Pretty good fun in single mode as well. And the music is just as it should be. It really is a wonderful game to play. You can lose a lot of time playing that, and plenty of levels, about 100 odd levels. Not bad. Now this was a revolutionary title at the time. This was Driller, which was made using Freescape program, and that is a 3D polygons. Now, if you remember how quickly these old machines used to run, 3D polygons were not the sort of thing you'd imagine doing on it. If you look at the early conversion, vector graphic versions of Star Wars games, for example, they wouldn't have worked so well on that one. With this one here, it moves incredibly slowly, but it's very, very possible just to keep going around. I put this on for when I first played it, put it on just to see what it was like, and 2.5 hours later I was still working my way through it. You can just lose yourself in it. It's one of these deep space exploration planet games. I should have read the instructions before I started playing it, because I didn't know what I was doing. However, really, really, really immense game. Looks obviously rubbish now, but you know, if you do get the chance to put some time into it, it's definitely worth giving it a go. Yeah, Driller. And there were a couple of games in the series as well, which names escape me now. I've got some other ones. I know if I come across it, I'll let you know. But there are other ones. There we go. We mentioned Renegade earlier. This is Target Renegade, which was the follow-up to the first game. This was actually an original game produced by the software house at the time to follow up the arcade original. The arcade original was so-so game. They didn't bring out a second one. This was actually a home release exclusive. In some cases, it's actually a lot better than the first game. Particularly, not so much on the Commodore 64. I think it's probably a better version on the Spectrum, if memory serves me correctly. I only played this one briefly, but yeah, it's a side-scrolling beat 'em up. You go around whacking bad guys, and they get to the end of the game. So, and you'll notice that it's not the original case either. Someone's swapped this one over, so that might be done. Another one of those pesky W.H. Smith labels. This is Rastan, which was $2.99 at the time. This is, as you can guess from the front, a sort of well, if the sticker wasn't there, it's like a barbarian loincloth, sword-wielding, long-haired gentleman who works out quite a bit, going from sort of left to right, whacking lizards and things with his sword. Never actually played it properly. The blurb on the back says Rastan actually plays like the original. You'll be a fool to miss it. Your Sinclair magazine, which on the back of a Commodore 64 game probably implies that it's not quite as good as that. I don't know about this one. I've not played it, so I can't really comment. The other ones I've played. That one I haven't. Now Salamander. Now, if you know anything about your Commodore 64, or you don't know anything about your Commodore 64, one thing that it was renowned for was its shoot 'em ups, which are left to right, side-scrolling spaceship shooting alien spacecraft. That's why you see a lot of games on the system which were designed for shoot 'em ups and get the best reviews, because the Commodore 64 absolutely thrived. There are some, if you can just maybe just see some of the graphics there as well. Try and get as close in the camera without blurring it too much. Really, really good graphics for an 8-bit system. They're taken from different formats, but on the 64, this is a really good game. You'll know it more on for our American viewers on the NES as Life Force. Came from Konami, which is a classic name throughout the games industry, and yeah, it's really, really good fun. I don't get very far with these games, but yeah, it's adrenaline pumping. That's what you want. You think Thunder Force 3 on the Mega Drive and go back, a few years. That's what we were doing before that. This is Vindicator. I have to say I know absolutely nothing about this one because I haven't played it, but I think from the back of it, it's going to be sort of in the 1942 Ikari Warriors Commando type thing. You may know more about this than me, I don't know, so it's one there to look forward to. Here's one I know an awful lot about. This is Batman. Now, not Batman the Caped Crusader or Batman the Isometric 3D Adventure, no, this is Batman the movie. Now, a game I spent so much time with on the Commodore 64. I had it, the part of the not the Commodore 64, the Amiga had the Batman pack for Christmas, and about 3 or 4 days later completed Batman the movie. One of my favourite games of all time, particularly the driving sections. This game obviously not quite as impressive. The driving sequences are much more different, but it's still a really good game, and it's one of those movie licenses. And if you go back and if you go to my website, which is www.retrosection.com, there's a lot of reviews about sort of games based on movies and bits and pieces. This is really good fun to play. I'd thoroughly recommend this one. Captured more bit. Right, I'm going to try and crack through some of these because I appreciate I'm taking up far too much of your time. Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters, which again is one of those arcade games which was there or thereabouts but wasn't really highly regarded, picked up by Domark for conversion and wasn't really picked well. I played this on both the 8 and 16-bit version. Fantastic game, full of humour, taken from sort of, if you look there, where you played Sonic 3D? Yeah, Sonic 3D, I think, sort of that sort of view. Really, really, really good fun, especially in 2-player mode. I say it's full of humour. It captures the spirit of those 1950s sort of Flash Gordon type films. Yeah, super stuff, really is. This is Puffy's Saga, which is, if you remember the game, the Gauntlet series, which are the dungeon games. It's the same sort of thing, but you're actually controlling a little character called Puffy, and he's like a round ball. Briefly played it, but not all that impressed by it, I've got to be honest with you. We'll have to see and get back and revisit that one. I mentioned Mr. Schwarzenegger. This is Predator, well regarded at the time. I've never been quite happy playing it because I'm not quite sure what you're meant to be doing in it. If I read the instructions, it would help. I don't know. I played it a bit. I couldn't really get on with it. That's not to say it's a good game or a bad game, but at the time it was very well respected. Of course, it's a version of the 1987 film. In fact, I think there's another one coming out soon, isn't there? They keep flogging that one to death, don't they? But yeah, so very well reviewed at the time. I've briefly played it since then. It was all right. This is Run the Gauntlet, which it was a short-lived ITV. How's the best way to describe it, really? Sort of like the Krypton Factor with vehicles, and hosted by Martin Shaw, who used to be in The Professionals back in the 70s, which was another UK TV series. Yeah, and it's like giant vehicles, sort of like land buggies and water boats things, and you sort of have races. It's quite good. It's like a collection of sort of racing games rolled into one. And yeah, I played this on both the Amiga and the 64. and both versions are okay. Nothing spectacular. But yeah, run the gauntlet. There's a blast from the past there. Almost a forgotten TV series. Now, for those you remember, sort of breakout on the Atari 2600, this was the remake in the mid 80s, Arkanoid, and there was also a sequel called Arkanoid Revenge of Doe. As you can see from the back there, if you look closely, it's a bat and ball game, same sort of thing, but with power-ups like the ability to create multiple balls or get a gun attachment so you can blast the bricks, and also you've got little aliens floating around which will try and interfere with what you're going on. It's obviously great fun. I mean, at the time it was like, oh yeah, but it's already been done. Well, it had already been done, but it was done again, and it was done really, really well. Stallone's Cobra, which was a pretty rubbishy Stallone picture from the late 80s. It's also a pretty rubbishy Commodore 64 game. There is a video up on the website. You can go back and have a look at that. Great music. I can't knock the music, and other versions of this game are available and were better. This one, rubbish. Quartet, which was a very well remembered arcade game because you could do multiple players on it. It was sort of like Gauntlet set in space, but nowhere near as good. Musically great. Again, there's another video up on the website on this one. I'm not sure if other versions available are any better, but this again is not very good. It's actually, I find it too easy, and I'm rubbish at playing games, I've got to be honest with you. Yeah, better as the arcade game. If you want, you probably find it on one of those arcade MAME type programs that I should be talking about, but you know what I mean. But yeah, that one. Slap Fight, which was a top level upward screen scrolling shoot 'em up, which I think is possibly one of the oldest games I can remember going back, because I'm pretty sure this was bundled in with maybe the ST and possibly some of the Amiga packages to start with. I don't know, I can't quite be sure, but I remember it from going years and years and years ago. It's sort of like 1942, which is the same sort of thing, but without set in the future. This game, actually, I played this. I was going to do a video about it, and then when I was playing it, I realised that it seemed to be going on forever and ever and ever, and that's because there was something wrong with it. It loaded the stuff in, but just carried on playing the first level and just kept going and going. So, bit of fiddling around with that one. You'll also find a video on this one, which is WEC Le Mans. This is one of those games where you sort of look at it and you think, why did that ever get converted? You've got to remember, back in the day, the technology was primitive compared to what the arcades were doing, and this was an arcade machine, which was a giant sort of sit-down hydraulic machine. The idea was you'd sort of be driving around and you sort of spin if you're doing corners like that. Great big sort of circular thing. Look it up on Google, WEC Le Mans arcade machine. You'll know what I'm talking about. That's why it costs like £2 or £5 to go and sit there and play it. And how on earth you could transfer that to the Commodore 64 or the Spectrum or the Amstrad or whatever, I don't know. Even a 16-bit machine struggled with this one, and generally got very, very poor reviews. It's on the website, the video from previous. Have a look at that one as well. Well, we're speaking on the verge of why the point in doing that. Here's another one of my all-time favourites, Enduro Racer, which is absolutely horrible on the Commodore 64. Again, musically, not bad at all. Again, there's a video up on this, me playing this from a few years ago. Absolute rubbish, it really is. Other versions are better. If you want to check out a completely original version, check out the Master System game. This is one of those where you've got the biker at the bottom of the screen, and then you move it sort of like around and turn corners. You think outrun with bikes, that's how it sort of is. The Master System version turns the whole thing from a slightly different angle, turns it to an isometric view, and then you move up and down. Like, it's much more different. Again, plenty of that stuff on YouTube when I see it, but much more different, much more playable actually. This, forget it, waste of time. This isn't all that good on the Commodore 64, but I got a lot of fun out of it. This is Rampage, which, if you remember, there was a film version came out this year. Why? Why is there a film version of Rampage? We don't need a film version of Rampage. This has also been updated and remade. It was the new version brought out on the N64. There's a new version brought out on the Wii. It's alright. It's good fun for a bit. It's not particularly brilliant. The idea is you just climb buildings with a choice of the monsters you can see there. Climb the buildings, break the buildings, avoid getting killed, eat people. Yeah, it's good fun, but it's not. This isn't as fun as the arcade game. It's not as fun as the original. I played the original on emulation. It's much more fun. This one, yeah, it's alright. Platoon, which is again another giant film conversion from Ocean. Some people don't like this. It got good reviews at the time, but a lot of people find it very frustrating and a bit boring walking around trying to work out what you're doing. I've had a little bit of play on it. It's all right. It's okay. You could lose a bit of time playing it, but I think someone said it was generally just brown in colour. He gets everywhere, doesn't he? Old Sylvester. There's another one. This is Rambo 3. I can't say I played this one. I played the Mega Drive version, which is a completely different game. The one to get Rambo version, if you want Rambo for 64, is the First Blood Part 2 game with the absolutely awesome soundtrack by Martin Galway. I haven't played that one, so I don't know what it's about, but I don't think it's going to be as fun as the Mega Drive version. Now, Wonder Boy. There has been a recent update of one of the classic Wonder Boy games, Wonder Boy in Monsterland, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but please feel free to do so. This is the first game, got really sort of like average reviews. It's not bad actually. There is a video up on this one on the website as well, on the YouTube channel. It's alright, it's a bit of fun, not particularly groundbreaking. I think you'll find that the later games are much better and more in depth. That was okay. Green Beret, which again American viewers will probably know as Russian Attack. Quite hard. There's a video up on this one. It's quite a difficult game. Very, very fast moving. Doesn't give you much margin for error at all. It was a mid-80s, one of the sort of the big first arcade conversions that came out. It's pretty good fun, but be prepared to get very, very frustrated with it because it can be difficult. Another one with the video up on the website. This is Trivial Pursuit. Giant crack in the case there. Yeah, this is exactly what it says on the tin. It is Trivial Pursuit on the computer. Actually, it's alright. I played that, again the video up on that on the website. It's alright. Shaolin's Road. I think there may be a video up on the website about this one. If there is, yeah, fun little beat 'em up, some nice music, a bit cute looking, but not really all that groundbreaking or particularly memorable. We spoke about it earlier. There's a video up on the website about this one. This is Rambo First Blood Part 2. You'll see me playing that one on there. I said one of the all-time classic soundtracks. Brilliant recreation by Martin Galway. Not a bad game. Bit frustrating, but yeah, not bad at all. 2 to go now. We're nearly done. This is Daley Thompson's Decathlon. Now, for those of you who don't know who Daley Thompson is, he was the premier British athlete back in the 1980s. The decathlon is an athletics event which incorporates 5 running and 5 field events, and he was one of the very best in the world. He was, I think, he was an Olympic champion. He may have been a world champion. I don't know. I can't quite remember. He's also well remembered for his doing the pole vault, his pole splitting as he went up there. He also he went over one of the pole vaults and then did the somersault and all that. Yeah, one of the great athletes of our time here in the UK. This was, if you remember Hypersports, very much the same sort of thing. It's a joystick wangler, responsible for many broken joysticks and arm injuries, and people were suffering rotator cuff problems later in life. But yeah, a number of, I think it was Daley Thompson's Decathlon, I think it was possibly even Daley Thompson's Daley Thompson's Super Test, I'm not quite sure. There's definitely Daley Thompson's Olympic Challenge, which came out in time for the 88 Olympics. This one that came out before it. I think there may be another game as well. And finally, we mentioned Domark earlier. This is the Return of the Jedi, which I have more fun. I played that on the Amiga, which is a really sort of like horrible looking version of the game. But I managed to complete that quite easily. This one, I think there is a bit of a version up on the website, or I did play it at one point and never uploaded the video. It's alright. Not particularly. The first 2 Star Wars games, incidentally, if you remember from the arcade, were the vector graphic games taken from the cockpit of the X-Wing or the Snowspeeder. This one is more a collection of sort of mini games in scenes in the film. So you're doing the biker chase through the forest, and you're doing an attack on the Death Star, and yeah, all that business. Doesn't quite come together, but there we go. So that's the Hit Squad label games I've got there. I think it was 36, 33, 33. 33. That's taken forever. Yeah, so hopefully that's jogged some memories for you. Certainly has for me. I'll be going through the rest of these in good time. We've got some other budget labels. We've got Kicks, we've got Elite Encore, Codemasters, Mastertronic, alternative software, and everything else I can get in there. I'm going to try and whiz through those as quick as possible. Some of those will be great because I won't know anything about them because I've not actually played most of them, or can remember what they were like anyway. So that's it. So they'll go into the box. We'll get the next lot up shortly, and we'll see how we get on from there. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope that's been enjoyable for you. Do leave any comments or messages or any questions you'd like to ask. Try and get back to you as best we can. But until next time, see you soon.